I've recently noticed that when you create a fresh Databricks workspace, then the allowed cluster policies that exist by default does not allow you to both create a cluster that has a single node cluster at the same time as choosing small instance types. So in this video we will have a look at how to modify and create new cluster policies so that you can create Databricks clusters that are cheaper than the one you can under the default settings. We start by looking at the existing cluster policies and how cluster creations is restricted under those policies. If I choose the unrestricted policy, then I don't have the option to create a cluster in single mode for some reason. If I choose the personal compute policy, then it is a single node cluster by default, but I cannot choose the small instances. If I choose, for instance, one of the other ones, let's say the power compute, that will allow me to choose the smaller instances, then I'm not allowed to choose a single node cluster. So what if I both want a single node cluster and also want to run it on a small instance? In that case, we will need to create a new policy because the existing policies does not allow it. For instance, the personal compute policy you can only choose these clusters to create on. So what we will do is we will go create a new policy and we will base it on another policy. So for instance, you can choose the personal compute policy in this case here. And what we will be doing is to basically override some of the properties, or in this case, the exact property that specifies which clusters you are allowed to create. The way you do it is to press edit here, and then you insert the properties that you want to override. So in our case, the node type, and we will change the type to unlimited. Databricks has some intelligence, so it will actually help you what are the allowed values. And in this case here, we don't need to specify anything else. Press OK. And now we actually have a policy that's overriding the existing private compute policy that we have called small cluster policy version 2. So if I want to create a cluster now, then I can choose this new cluster policy that we have just created. And what we now have the option to do is to basically have a single node cluster, but when we go to node type, we actually have free access to all types of nodes in this case. So if you have a particular use case or restriction that you want to imply, then you can of course choose a more restricted list, but in this case here we have free access to choose in this case a smaller instance to run our cluster on, and that will be cheaper in the end if you just need to do some development work. That's it for now. I hope this video will save you $1.